Oh, it is good to be here this morning. This is our time that we have our annual Gideon. Had a great banquet here the other night. Got to hear some good testimonies as the Gideons gathered here. So y'all be ready to give as God places upon your heart. Brother Ralph, come on.
Thank you. Excuse me. We appreciate being here this morning, and if I don't drop everything all over the floor, well, we've been in good shape here. Revelation 22:17 says, "And the Spirit and the bride say, Come. Let him that heareth say, Come. Let him that is athirst come. And whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely." Greatest message that we can have to share with other people, men, women, boys, and girls. And we get to do that through working with the church. That's why I love to speak. I'm not a good speaker, but I love to come to the church, and I look across, and I know when we go out on the distribution, I can remember and see the people that we've talked with and who's made all these scriptures available that we can go out and place. A group of us went to JFK High School to make a distribution. Now, most places we can't go into schools, but if this was a school, a sidewalk out there, we can stand on the public sidewalk. School's out or coming in, we can hand out the testaments, and it works out real good. And we went to JFK High School up in New York, big school, thousands. I don't know how many kids was there, but there was a lot of them. The bell rang, and here come the kids, and we're standing giving out. I tell people, I wish I could explain to you what it feels like to have boxes of Bibles, little testaments, and you can't get them out of the boxes fast enough. The kids are coming. And we just give out boxes, about 10, 15 minutes, and of course they're gone. And my buddy and I, we give out about 2,500 one afternoon at this school. It was just an awesome testimony. And we was picking up our boxes and papers and getting everything ready to get back in our car. The teachers start pulling out. And one car pulled over to the side, starting to roll the window down. And so I walked over to her and said, "Evening, ma'am." And she just kind of had that look over what we was doing, our boxes. I said, "We're with the Gideons. We're here. We placed a bunch of testaments to the kids. That's what we're doing. We're fixing to leave." And she said, "Oh, the Gideons." And we got to talking. She said, "My first Bible was a Gideon Bible." And I said, "Really? Tell me about it." She said, "I'm Jewish." She said, "I'm from Israel." And she said, "I come to know Christ as my Savior over in Israel." That's what she told me. And they gave me a Gideon Bible, and I thought that was so wonderful. And she said, "I've been over here teaching for about 5 years. I haven't seen you. I didn't know that you'd done this." I said, "Yes, ma'am." So we had a real good conversation, and I told her about giving out Bibles to high schools and colleges. Before she left, she stuck a little hand out the window. She said, "God bless you for being here today, giving Bibles to my students." I said, "Thank you, ma'am. God bless you." And that's what we get to do when we come back and say, "People, thank you. God bless you for putting these Bibles in our hands that we can reach them out to boys and girls, men and women, where that we go." One of my earliest distributions was at a high school, and it was real good, standing on the street, and we got it all done. We picked up our boxes, going back to our cars, and me and my buddy, we was walking along, and I looked out in the street, and there lay the testament. I said, "Man, shoot, somebody throw one away." Because they just meant let me go get it, and I started to walk over to get it, and he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "No, leave it there." I said, "No, I don't want to leave it there." He said, "Hey, we give that Bible away." He said, "It belong to us anymore." That's in God's hands. Well, that made sense, but I didn't want to leave no Bible in the middle of the street. But just in a few seconds, whatever it was there, and I'm standing there wondering what's going on, and there was a phone truck, a big white van stopped. The driver got out, run around, picked that Testament up, went back, got in his van, and drove on down the road. My buddy just looked at me. I said, give me time to learn. You know, the Bible said, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please and shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. We just got to get it out there, you know, to put it in the hands of men and women, boys and girls. You know, it took us about 90 years when the Gideon started to place the first billion scriptures. And less than 14 years later, we'd already placed the second billion, B with a B. And we're already halfway to going on our third billion. The doors that are opened to place these scriptures around the world is just unreal. And right here in the United States, it's bigger than what you think. It's just a matter of getting to the people, you know, getting to where we got to go. And just for statistics' sake, it costs, if you average them out worldwide, it takes about $1.53 to place or give a Bible to somebody in the world through the Gideon ministry. 100% of the scriptures money that you give, whether you give today going out, whether you use the Memorial Bible cards, or if you wasn't thinking about it, didn't come prepared, take a bulletin home with you, it's got an envelope on it, and you can send it back into the local Gideons. And but I like to tell people, because I can understand it better, I guess, when it gets right down to it, you can feel your heartbeat. People, this morning, when you go home, you go out to eat, go visit, every time your heart beats, it averages out. 2 Bibles are being given or placed somewhere on the world today because of the faithfulness of the churches. Now, we're in about 200 countries and providences around the world. That's pretty hefty. I hadn't seen that movie, you know, they showed us the other night. But I like to tell people, all these scriptures that are going into these 200 countries around the world and the United States, people, about 70% of those Bibles come from the churches of the United States. So it's very, very important. God has blessed us tremendously and continues to bless us in being able to give out these scriptures. And we got a testimony this morning that they're going to show, just to give you an idea. And I hope you see Livermore Baptist Church written all over this testimony, because people, it's your work. You made this testimony happen, really, for sure. So I hope that you'll be blessed, you know, as Ron Archer shares what God has done in his life and what he's doing. And he's preaching today. If he's, you know, everything's all right and he's not in a flood somewhere. So,
10 years old, and I held my mother's gun to my head, and I wanted to blow my brains out all over her wall. You must ask the question, why would a 10-year-old child want to die? 10 is a time to dream of being an astronaut, of being a soccer star, a football player, a preacher, a pastor, a doctor. But for me, life was so horrific, with so much vitriol and pain, I wanted to die. I'm a product of interracial immigrants. My grandmother was tall, white, and thin from Germany, and we called her French fry. My grandfather was a big, burly black man from Cuba, and we called him Hamburger. Hamburger meant French fry and created a happy meal. And these 2 immigrants produced 7 McNuggets with special sauce. We would joke that we would have Wiener Schnitzel with salsa for Thanksgiving. My grandfather had to hide the fact in the 1940s in America that he was married to a Caucasian woman. One wedding anniversary Larry, he had a flaw. He liked to drink overproof Cuban rum. One evening he was inebriated, and a man saw them together and said to my grandmother, "Why would you be a nigger lover?" My grandfather, with huge arms, lost his temper and hit the man in the jaw and broke his neck. Man didn't die, but he was injured severely. He went to the worst prison, convicted of a crime. Mansfield Reformatory in Ohio, locked down 23 hours a day. It hit the newspapers that my grandmother was married to this convicted felon and she lost her job. But being a German woman, she didn't complain or whine or woe is me. She began to work odd jobs, cleaning other people's houses and toilets, taking care of their children. But as she was working, she would have fainting spells, passing out doing her job. Went to the doctor and discovered that she had a tumor growing behind her left eye that was metastasizing to her brain. The doctor said they would take out a third of your face, your eye. You will be malformed and disformed and disfigured for the rest of your life. What do? The American dream becomes an American nightmare. She could not work. She was sick and mutilated. My grandfather's in jail, and day by day, they lost everything that they had acquired. They lost their house. They lost their car. They lost their furniture. They lost their dignity. They lost their self-esteem. And they were living in the streets like animals. My three uncles got hooked on heroin. They belonged to a gang called the Devil's Disciple. And my entire family became atheistic. No God, no prayer, no Bible, no hope. And my mother at age 14 was called by a pimp named Larry, who said to her, "What is school doing for you? You are sitting on a gold mine." She said, "Where?" He said, "You're sitting on it." And we call this being turned out. And little by little, she began to sell her 14-year-old body to grown men for money to survive. It's called turning tricks. At age 16, she got pregnant. We call it having a trick baby. Two strangers meet for a business transaction, and there's a mistake. The pimp said, "You can't make any money having a baby in the oven. We have got to kill this baby." They kicked her in the stomach. They fed her alcohol. They gave her drugs. They took a hanger and stabbed the baby over and over again. But the baby would not die. The baby was born 2 months premature with no pancreas, a learning disability, a bladder too small, unable to function, a severe stutterer. We call it a trick baby. Nobody wants the baby. No hope, no future. Kill it was the word. That baby was me. I'm the lowest of the low. I come from the guttermost. I come from a hellish condition. And so when I would go to school, I couldn't talk. I stuttered so severely from the trauma. My mother had a madam who hated men. Her name was Dolores, and she was a sadist. And when she would watch me, she would take a broomstick and stick it in a place where no boy should have any object in his body. And when you are tortured like that, you learn 4 things. Don't talk, don't trust, don't feel, and pretend nothing is happening. And by age 10, I had had enough. I wanted to die. And in my school, they put me in a boiler room with other kids who were dysfunctional like me, where we would finger paint all day long. And yet there was a teacher, thank God for her, who had a Gideon Bible. And she came to my school and she saw kids like me as her mission field. And she would give me this Gideon Bible and read to me stories of dysfunctional characters who God used. She would say to me, "Ronaldo, God uses greatly those who have been wounded very deeply. He will turn your pain into power, your wounds into wisdom." She had me read the story of Moses, who was also a stutterer. I began to understand that God did love Gideon Bible, reading 2,000 scriptures. And when you put that kind of word in a life, something begins to happen. My stuttering went away. I stopped wetting the bed. I stood tall. I became valedictorian, became a pastor, and preached until everybody in my family got saved. Why? Because somebody placed the Gideon Bible in a woman's hand that changed a life forever. Yes, I was born a trick baby, but the trick was on the devil because of you and the power of the word of God.
People, that's how precious you are. That's how precious our kids are. His word won't return unto me void. And that's how it works, Father, that we work hand in hand, side by side, in sharing the precious word that we got with other people. I had the privilege quickly to go to Sofia, Bulgaria, another country, to help hand out these scriptures. We went there just right after, just 9-10 years after they got their freedom back again. And we were standing in one of the largest colleges there. And same thing, kids going through, we was giving out Bibles. 90% of those kids took Bibles. I didn't try to speak English, use the phrase in their language. I just said, you get a free Bible. You know, they would take them and go on in. But we were standing there and having them out, and a lady walked right up to me. I said, "Morning, ma'am, did you get your free gift?" And she walked right up to me and she broke in English. She said, "That's a Bible." I said, "Yes, ma'am, would you like one?" And she said, "No," again. I'm thinking, because we'd had a rough time that week. I didn't know what we was going to get into. I guess she seen the expression on my face and my eyes getting big because I figured I was going to get chewed out. She said, No. She said, I'm Christian. I have a big Bible at home. I said, "Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that." But we stood there and talked, and she said, I'm with Campus Crusade." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "We've got the theater rented, and we're going to be showing the Jesus film all week." And I looked at her, I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Here you are giving out free Bibles." I said, "Yes, ma'am, we sure are." She looked at me, and I still see her face today, the sweetest face. She said, "Only God could do this." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, only God can do this. Only God can do that. Only God can do this. Only God can do the work that He's called us to do and given us the privilege to do. And whosoever will, let him come and take the water of life freely." That's our message, people, that we give out and place these scriptures. And we're so grateful. And God bless Livermore Baptist Church for your faithfulness in making these scriptures available. Thank you, brother.
Testimony this morning, plus the testimony in the video. And so at this time, we're going to, Brother Porter's after the service at the end. Brother, you can go ahead and go do that if you want. In case they try to sneak out on you.
Get on.